When we talk about healing, we usually think of broken bones or physical wounds. But some of the deepest and most painful wounds are the ones we can't see, the emotional wounds left by childhood experiences. These are the quiet scars, the invisible weight we carry into adulthood, often without even realizing it. And yet, they shape our self-worth, our relationships, our fears, our capacity to trust, and even our future. If you've ever felt like something from your past is holding you back, like there's a pain inside you that has no clear origin, you're not alone, and this video is for you. Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century, believed that childhood was not just a developmental phase, it was the very foundation of our psychological structure. According to Jung, our early experiences form the bedrock of the subconscious mind. What we live through as children, the love we receive, the fears we absorb, the traumas we endure, gets stored deep within us, often far below our conscious awareness. So let's begin with the question, what exactly are childhood wounds? They're not always about catastrophic events. Sometimes they're caused by emotional neglect, by being constantly criticized, by growing up in an environment where you didn't feel safe, seen, or supported. It can be the absence of something essential, love, validation, consistency, or the presence of something overwhelming, shame, fear, abandonment. These experiences don't always register as trauma at the time, but over the years they become patterns, shaping how we see ourselves and others. One of Jung's most important ideas was that our psyche contains different layers, and the subconscious, or more precisely the unconscious, is a powerful force that holds the parts of ourselves we don't want to face. This includes our fears, insecurities, and unresolved emotions. But it also includes something even more profound, our shadow. The shadow, according to Jung, is the hidden side of the self. It's the part we reject, suppress, or deny. This is where many of our childhood wounds go to hide. If you were told it wasn't okay to cry, to ask for attention, to show anger, you likely learned to push those parts of yourself away. They didn't disappear. They just sank deeper into your shadow. The problem is, what we reject doesn't stay quiet forever. It leaks out through anxiety, depression, anger, self-sabotage. We find ourselves stuck in patterns we don't understand, repeating the same emotional cycles, drawn to relationships that mirror our early wounds. That's not coincidence. That's your subconscious trying to heal itself by recreating familiar pain. Healing begins with awareness. That means turning inward gently but honestly and asking, what am I carrying? What old pain still lives inside me? What beliefs about myself were planted in childhood that no longer serve me? But let's be clear, this is not easy work. Jung warned that confronting the unconscious is like facing a dragon. It's uncomfortable. Sometimes it's terrifying. Because we're not just revisiting memories, we're challenging the very identity we've built around avoiding pain. But the truth is, we cannot heal what we refuse to feel. So how do we start this journey? First, create space for self-reflection. This could be through journaling, therapy, meditation, or simply quiet moments of solitude. The goal is to bring what is unconscious into the light. Ask yourself, what triggers me emotionally? What situations make me feel small, helpless, or reactive? These are often echoes of childhood wounds. Second, practice self-compassion. Many of us were never taught how to be kind to ourselves. We internalized critical voices, thinking they were our own. But healing requires a new voice, a loving, patient, understanding voice that says, it's okay, you're safe now. You're not that child anymore. When you can look at your past self, the scared, confused, or hurt version of you, and offer love instead of judgment, something powerful begins to shift. Third, understand that healing is not linear. There will be days you feel free and empowered, and others where the old pain returns like a storm. That's okay. Healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means learning to live with it differently, to stop letting it control you. It's about integration, not avoidance. Jung believed that our inner healing work is not just personal, but spiritual. When we confront our shadow, when we bring light to our wounds, we initiate what he called the process of individuation. This is the path to becoming a whole, authentic self. It's the transformation of pain into wisdom, of darkness into light. Let's look at an example. Imagine a child who grew up feeling emotionally neglected. Their parents were physically present but emotionally unavailable. This child learns not to ask for support, not to express needs. As an adult, they may become fiercely independent, afraid to rely on others, struggling to trust. On the surface, they seem strong, but underneath is a wound, a fear of abandonment, a belief that their needs will never be met. Healing this wound doesn't mean blaming the parents forever. It means acknowledging the pain, grieving what was missing, and learning to give yourself what you didn't receive. That might mean learning to trust others slowly, to ask for help, to sit with vulnerability instead of running from it. Here's another example. A child constantly criticized learns to tie their worth to achievement. They become a perfectionist, always striving, never satisfied. Underneath the success is a deep fear of failure and rejection. Healing for this person means unlearning the belief that they must earn love. It means accepting their worth as unconditional regardless of performance. These stories are common, and if you saw yourself in either of them or in both, you are not broken. You are human, and your wounds are not your fault. But healing them, that is your responsibility, and it is possible. Science backs this up. Research in neuroscience and psychology shows that the brain has remarkable plasticity. It can change, adapt, and rewire itself throughout life. That means the emotional patterns set in childhood are not permanent. Through therapy, mindfulness, emotional processing, and meaningful connection, we can reshape our inner world. Trauma expert Dr. Bessel van der Kolk says, the body keeps the score. Our nervous systems remember what our minds try to forget, but with the right support and intention, we can reprocess those memories. We can teach our bodies that we are safe now, that the danger is over. As we continue, we'll explore more tools and practices for inner healing, how to work with the inner child, how to integrate the shadow, how to create new emotional pathways. But for now, let this be the foundation. Healing is not about fixing something broken. It's about remembering your wholeness. It's about returning to yourself. Now let's go deeper into the source of these wounds and how they show up in everyday life. It's important to understand that many behaviors we call personality traits are often survival strategies we developed as children. If you learned that being quiet kept you safe, you might now struggle to speak up for yourself. If you were praised only when you achieved something, you might tie your entire self-worth to accomplishments. And if you were constantly rejected or shamed, you might now live in fear of intimacy or failure, even if you don't consciously realize it. Childhood isn't just about what happened, it's also about what didn't happen. The hugs you didn't receive, the encouragement you never heard, the safety you didn't feel. These absences can shape you just as much as obvious traumas. And the most insidious part, we normalize them. We tell ourselves, it wasn't that bad, or I had food, clothes, a roof, others had it worse. But emotional deprivation isn't always loud. It's quiet, invisible, and sometimes even harder to validate. This is why inner healing requires brutal honesty, not blame, not victimhood, but honesty. Ask yourself, what did I need as a child that I didn't get? Was it emotional safety? Was it permission to feel? Was it someone to say, you matter just as you are? Many of us were never given that foundation, and yet we wonder why we feel anxious, insecure, or disconnected as adults. Understanding the wounded inner child is key here. The inner child isn't just a metaphor, it's a real psychological aspect of you. It's the part that holds your earliest feelings, memories, and unmet needs. And when those needs are ignored, the inner child continues to seek attention, often in dysfunctional ways. Emotional outbursts, people-pleasing, self-sabotage, these are all signs that your inner child is still calling out to be seen, heard, and loved. So what does healing actually look like? It begins with reparenting yourself. This means giving yourself now what you didn't receive back then. Think of it like building a new relationship with you. You become the stable, loving, protective parent to your own inner child. This isn't about fantasy, it's about emotional reality. You can say to yourself, I'm here for you, I see you, I accept you. And over time, that message begins to sink in. The nervous system starts to relax, the old panic responses start to loosen, and trust begins to grow. Let's talk about emotional triggers. Triggers are not weaknesses, they are invitations. When something makes you feel irrationally upset or defensive, that's a doorway to your deeper self. Maybe your partner says something small and you feel like you're being abandoned. Or someone criticizes your work and you spiral into shame. Those intense emotions are not just about the present moment, they're echoes of old wounds. Instead of fighting them, learn to get curious. Ask, where is this really coming from? What does this remind me of? Journaling is a powerful tool for this. Try writing from the voice of your inner child. Let them speak. What do they want to say? What are they afraid of? You might be surprised at what comes up. Sometimes the inner child just needs permission to feel something they were never allowed to feel. Anger, sadness, fear. And when those emotions are finally acknowledged, they lose their grip. They become part of your story, not the whole story. Now let's be clear. Healing doesn't mean your past goes away. It means your relationship with your past changes. The wound becomes a scar, and the scar becomes a source of wisdom. You may still feel the pain sometimes, but it no longer defines you. That's emotional freedom, not the absence of hurt, but the ability to live fully even with the hurt. Another part of healing is boundaries. Many childhood wounds are rooted in boundary violations. Maybe your emotions weren't respected. Maybe your body wasn't safe. Maybe your time and space were constantly invaded. As a result, you may struggle with saying no, asserting yourself, or protecting your energy. But boundaries are not selfish, they are sacred. They are how we teach others to treat us and how we show ourselves that we are worthy of care. Start small. Say no when you mean no. Take time alone when you need it. Don't over-explain your choices. At first it may feel uncomfortable, especially if you were conditioned to put others' needs first. But the discomfort is part of the transformation. Every boundary you set is a step toward healing the child who didn't have the right to set any. Let's not forget the role of the body in healing. Trauma isn't just in the mind, it lives in the body. That's why talk therapy, while powerful, is sometimes not enough. You may understand your pain logically, but still feel it in your chest, your gut, your nervous system. Practices like somatic therapy, breathwork, yoga, and even regular movement can help release stored tension and reconnect you with your body. Pay attention to your physical sensations. Notice where you hold tension. Breathe into those places. Let your body speak. Often it knows things the mind hasn't processed yet. Healing becomes not just mental, but physical, an embodied experience of safety and wholeness. Also, give yourself permission to grieve. This is a step many people skip. Grieve the childhood you didn't get. Grieve the love you deserved but didn't receive. Grieve the times you were hurt, ignored, or shamed. Grief is not weakness, it's acknowledgement. It's respect for your own experience. And without grief, healing remains incomplete. Community and connection are another pillar of recovery. So many childhood wounds involve isolation or disconnection. That's why healing in isolation is often slow or incomplete. Find spaces where you feel seen and understood, whether in a support group, therapy, or even deep friendships. The right people don't judge your wounds, they hold space for them. And slowly, those old beliefs, I'm too much, I'm not enough, I have to do everything alone, begin to dissolve. And finally, forgive. Not to excuse what happened, but to release yourself from its grip. Forgiveness is not about the other person, it's about your own freedom. Holding on to resentment ties you to the past. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting, it means choosing peace over pain. You are not broken, you are becoming. And your childhood wounds, as painful as they were, are not the end of your story. They're the beginning of your awakening. So let's look at what reparenting looks like in real life, not just in theory, but in action. Imagine waking up, and instead of rushing into your day with judgment or stress, you begin by checking in with yourself. You ask, what do I need today to feel safe? What does the younger version of me need to hear right now? Maybe it's something as simple as, you're not lazy, you're tired, rest is allowed now. Or, you don't need to earn love anymore, just being is enough. These small inner dialogues start to reshape the emotional wiring that was formed in childhood. Reparenting is also about building structure. If your childhood was chaotic or unpredictable, your nervous system learned to stay alert, to never fully relax. That's why, as an adult, routine can be deeply healing. Regular meals, predictable sleep, boundaries around work. These things aren't boring, they are forms of self-love. They're how we show our inner child that life doesn't have to be a battlefield anymore. Safety is built, moment by moment, through the ordinary. Now think about self-talk. If your inner voice still sounds like the critical adults from your childhood, it's time to challenge that voice. Start noticing when you shame yourself. When you say things like, "I'm so stupid," or "I'll never be enough," pause. Whose voice is that really? Often it's not yours, it's something you inherited. And the beauty of awareness is that once you see it, you can change it, replace it. Speak to yourself like you would to a hurt child, with patience, with compassion, with kindness. This isn't toxic positivity, it's emotional correction. Now let's explore how core beliefs get shaped by childhood wounds. If you were abandoned, you may believe that people always leave. If you were criticized constantly, you may believe you're not good enough. If you were ignored, you may believe your needs don't matter. These beliefs form silently, like background programs. And unless we question them, we live our entire lives through their lens, making decisions, choosing relationships, building careers that reinforce the very pain we're trying to escape. Healing requires you to rewrite the story. To say just because it felt true then doesn't mean it's true now. You are no longer that powerless child. You have tools, choices, awareness. You're allowed to choose relationships that feel safe. You're allowed to rest without guilt. You're allowed to succeed without fear of rejection. The story changes when you become the author, not just the character. And let's talk about shame, because shame is the glue that holds childhood wounds in place. Guilt says I did something bad, but shame says I am bad. Shame is the quiet poison that tells you you're unlovable, disgusting, broken. It hides in your silence. It makes you afraid to be vulnerable. It tells you that if people really knew you, they'd walk away. The antidote to shame is exposure, not in a reckless way, but in a conscious, brave way. Speaking your truth, naming what happened, saying, yes, this is my story, but it doesn't define my worth. You may need to say it to a therapist, to a friend, or even just in a journal. But every time you name shame, its power weakens, and your freedom grows. Now consider how childhood wounds affect your relationships. The way you attach to others, the way you love, trust, argue, forgive, much of it was shaped long before your first adult romance. If you had emotionally unavailable caregivers, you might now chase after emotionally distant partners, trying to earn their love the way you once tried to earn attention. If you had controlling parents, you might now fear losing your autonomy in relationships, pulling away the moment things get close. This isn't just psychology, it's pattern recognition. And the good news is, what was learned can be unlearned. You can build new attachment styles through safe, consistent connection. You can learn to receive love without fear. You can learn to trust without control. And the starting point is always the same: awareness. Noticing the pattern, interrupting the loop. Choosing something different, one moment at a time. Inner child work also involves joy. Don't forget that. Healing isn't just shadow work and trauma release. It's also about remembering what made you feel alive before the world told you to be small. What made you laugh? What did you love doing when no one was watching? Was it drawing? Climbing trees? Singing out loud? Go do that. Not as a productivity tool, but as a ritual. As a way of telling your inner child, you still matter. Your joy still matters. Let's also touch on projection. Often the parts of ourselves we haven't healed are the ones we project onto others. If you were never allowed to be angry, you might resent others who express their rage freely. If you were taught to suppress neediness, you might judge people who ask for help. These reactions are clues, signposts pointing to the wounds we've buried. When you find yourself judging someone harshly, pause and ask, what part of myself am I seeing in them? This question alone can unlock decades of insight. Now, one of the most difficult and transformative parts of healing childhood wounds is facing your family of origin, not necessarily in person, but internally. It's natural to feel loyalty to your parents, to protect them, to justify their behavior. But healing often means breaking this unspoken contract, saying, what happened wasn't okay. Even if they did their best, even if they meant well, I still deserved better. This is not betrayal. It's truth-telling. And truth is the foundation of healing. You may never get the apology you deserved. You may never have the conversation you longed for. But healing isn't about changing the past. It's about changing your relationship to the past. You don't need them to validate your pain in order to validate it yourself. Your experience is real. Your emotions are valid. And your healing is yours alone to claim. One powerful practice is writing a letter to your younger self. Picture that little version of you. Maybe they're 5 or 10 or 14. What do they need to hear? What would have changed their world? Write it down. Tell them they were never too much, that their tears made sense, that they were worthy of love, even on their worst days. When you speak to your inner child, you speak to the deepest part of your psyche, the part that has been waiting for someone to finally say, "I see you, I've got you now." And let's be honest, this work isn't linear. You will have good days and painful days, days when you feel free, and days when the old wounds flare up again. That doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're human. Progress in healing is measured not by perfection, but by presence. Are you more aware than you were before? Are you more compassionate with yourself? Are you able to pause and choose instead of reacting on autopilot? That's healing. That's growth. That's power. Now let's go deeper into triggers. Triggers are not just annoyances, they are portals. Every time you are triggered, your nervous system is reacting as if the past is happening again, right now. Your body doesn't know the difference between a real threat and a remembered one. That's why someone's tone of voice can make your heart race, why being ignored can make you feel invisible like you did when you were 6, or why someone's disapproval can make you feel like a failure, even if you've done nothing wrong. But here's the key. Triggers aren't enemies, they are invitations. Each trigger is a flashlight pointing at a wound that's asking to be healed. So instead of avoiding them or blaming others, try sitting with the feeling. Ask yourself, what age am I right now? When did I first feel this way? What did I need back then that I didn't get? These questions are hard, but they're also transformational. They take you out of reactivity and into awareness, out of survival and into healing. Emotional regulation is one of the most essential skills we never learned as children. If you were punished for expressing emotions or told to stop crying, then chances are you learned to suppress your feelings instead of process them. But emotions are not dangerous. They're messengers. Anger, sadness, fear, joy, they all carry information. Suppressing them doesn't make them go away, it just buries them in the body where they create tension, anxiety, and even illness. So how do we regulate emotions now as adults? First, you name the feeling. Not I'm overwhelmed, but I'm scared. Not I'm annoyed, but I feel unseen. Giving precise names to emotions helps the brain process them more effectively. Second, you validate the feeling. It makes sense that I feel this way given my past. Third, you move the feeling. Through breath, through writing, through talking, through movement. Emotions are energy. They want to move. Another part of healing childhood wounds is learning how to ask for what you need, without guilt, shame, or apology. This is difficult for people who grew up in homes where their needs were ignored or punished. You might believe that asking for help is selfish, or that expressing a boundary is rude, or that needing reassurance makes you weak. But here's the truth. Asking for what you need is not a burden. It's a form of honesty, and people who care about you want to know how to support you. The key is clarity, not hinting, not hoping they'll guess, but saying directly, I need space, or I need affection, or I need you to listen without trying to fix it. These small acts of honesty build trust, both with others and within yourself. Let's talk now about grief, because healing often involves mourning the childhood you didn't get. This can be a deeply painful, yet liberating process. You may grieve the safety you never felt, the encouragement you didn't receive, the unconditional love you were denied. And that grief is valid. You're not being dramatic, you're honoring what was missing. Many people avoid this grief because they feel it's too late, but it's never too late to feel, to honor, to process. You may never get those years back, but you can integrate the loss. You can allow it to shape you with softness, not bitterness. And in doing so, you give yourself the gift of emotional wholeness. Let's also consider how perfectionism is a mask for childhood pain. If you grew up feeling that love had to be earned, you may now strive for flawlessness as a way to feel worthy. You become hypervigilant. You fear mistakes. You push yourself relentlessly. And yet, no achievement ever feels like enough. Perfectionism isn't about excellence, it's about survival, about trying to control the environment so you don't get hurt again. But perfection is an illusion. What's real and healing is authenticity. Showing up as your whole self, messy, flawed, in progress. That's where connection lives. That's where healing begins. Now let's talk about boundaries. Not as walls, but as bridges. Boundaries are how we teach others to love us. They are acts of self-respect. If you had weak or non-existent boundaries as a child, you may struggle now with people-pleasing, over-giving, or staying silent when something feels wrong. But boundaries are not punishments. They are clarity. And clear is kind. Start small. Practice saying no without explanation. Practice asking for time before responding. Practice walking away from energy that drains you. Every boundary you set is a vote for the version of you who feels safe, seen, and sovereign. That version of you is worth protecting. One of the most overlooked aspects of healing childhood wounds is play. Not just structured play, but spontaneous, silly, unproductive joy. If your childhood was filled with pressure or trauma, you may have forgotten how to play altogether. But play is healing. It rewires the nervous system. It invites curiosity, creativity, and rest. Try doing something just for fun. Dance in your kitchen, finger paint, build a pillow fort. It might feel awkward at first, but keep going. You're not just doing it for yourself now. You're doing it for the child inside you who never got to be carefree, who had to grow up too fast. Let them come alive again. Let's not forget the role of the body in healing. Trauma isn't just stored in memories, it's stored in muscles, breath, posture. That's why talk therapy alone isn't always enough. Sometimes your body needs to move, to release, to express what words cannot. Practices like yoga, breathwork, somatic experiencing, and even dance can help bring the body back into safety. Pay attention to how your body reacts in different situations. Do your shoulders tense? Does your stomach clench? Does your breath get shallow? These are all cues, signals from your nervous system. And when you learn to listen to them, to respond with gentleness rather than force, you create a new relationship with yourself, one built on trust, not control. Now let's explore the idea of self-worth. Many childhood wounds stem from the belief that we are not enough, not smart enough, not attractive enough, not lovable enough. But these beliefs are not facts, they are echoes. Echoes of things we were told or shown, or not told or shown. And self-worth isn't something you earn, it's something you remember. You were born worthy, full stop. Before you ever achieved anything, before you ever disappointed anyone, that worth never left. It just got buried under layers of pain. Healing is the process of uncovering it, of stripping away the lies, of saying, I don't have to be perfect to be lovable, I just have to be me. And finally, let's talk about forgiveness, not as forgetting or excusing, but as releasing. Releasing the grip the past has on your present. Forgiveness isn't something you do for others. It's something you do for your own freedom. You may never understand why someone hurt you. You may never get closure, but you can decide that your future will not be dictated by their past choices. Forgiveness is not a one-time act. It's a process, a spiral. Some days it feels possible. Other days it feels impossible. That's okay. What matters is the direction. Are you moving toward peace? Are you releasing resentment? Are you creating space in your heart for something more than pain? Because your future is not a reflection of your past. It's a reflection of your healing. This is just the beginning of the journey. There's so much more to uncover, to feel, and to heal. If this spoke to something deep inside you, don't stop here. Part 2 is coming soon, and what's waiting there might just shift everything. So make sure you subscribe, hit the bell, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your story matters, your voice matters, and your healing can inspire someone else to begin. I'll see you in the next one. To be continued.